This is our carbon footprint project over waste.
Where the carbon comes from. The carbon released from waste activity primarily comes from organic materials delivered from biomass sources such as food scraps, paper, wood, and yard trimmings.
How the carbon is released. In a landfill, organic waste is buried and deprived of oxygen, leading to anaerobic decomposition by bacteria. This process produces landfill gas, a mix of approximately 50% methane and 50% carbon dioxide.
How much carbon is released each year? In the U.S., landfills released an estimated 119.8 million metric tons of CO2, equivalent CO2 of methane, into the atmosphere in 2022. This represents 17.1% of the total U.S. anthropogenic methane emissions
Worldwide. In 2020, global human-caused methane emissions from municipal solid waste landfills had a warming impact equivalent to approximately 4.4 billion metric tons of CO2 over a 20-year time horizon. Solid waste emissions made up to 11% of all global emissions in 2020.
Effect of this carbon on our climate. The primary gas released, methane, is a potent greenhouse gas that traps heat in the atmosphere. Over a 20-year period, methane is approximately 80 times more effective at warming the planet than CO2. The increase in these greenhouses gas intensifies the greenhouse effect, contributing significantly to global warming, which leads to changes in weather patterns, sea level rise, and more frequent and intense natural disasters.
Effects on ecosystems. Rising sea levels threaten coastal ecosystems, while changing weather patterns, droughts, and floods disrupt terrestrial and aquatic habitats and alter biodiversity. Air quality. Methane contributes to the formation of ozone, which decreases air quality and can harm animal health and reduce crop yields. Ecosystems most affected. While climate change affects all ecosystems, marine and coastal ecosystems are particularly vulnerable due to rising sea temperatures, ocean acidification from increased CO2 absorption, and the physical threat of sea level rise.
Why we should care. Effects on daily lives. Daily life impacts. Climate change leads to health problems, food insecurities from reduced crop yields, and increased risk of natural disasters affecting homes and communities.
Urgency. Methane is short-lived in the atmosphere compared to CO2, which means that reducing methane emissions now presents a critical, fast opportunity to immediately slow the rate of global warming. Reducing waste helps conserve natural resources and energy, creating a more sustainable system for future generations.
Reducing our carbon footprint. Audie did really well throughout the week trying to reduce electricity usage and car gas. We carpooled to soccer practice, allowing both of us to reduce our gas usage. She struggled with turning off lights in the house before leaving, so this week she really focused on remembering to turn off the lights when leaving to reduce electricity usage.
Caitlin rode her bicycle to school this week, reducing her gasoline emissions. She struggles with leaving her straightener on, so this week Caitlin really focused on making sure her electronics were unplugged when she left her house, reducing her electricity usage. This past week, we both went to a farmer's market and purchased sustainable goods to help reduce our food waste and carbon production.
Some small steps that you can do daily to reduce the amount of carbon released from this activity. We first wanted to carpool at least 3 days per week and use our bikes for small trips. Second, we started unplugging electronics when not in use and swapped out light bulbs in the house for LEDs. Third, we concentrated on eliminating single-use plastics by making sure to use a refillable water bottle, and shopping bags to allow less waste contamination. Finally, we started composting food scraps instead of throwing them away, which helps with methane emissions from landfills.
How much can we reduce the carbon released by the plans of the actions above? Individual impact. By recycling, composting, and cutting food waste, one person can reduce their carbon footprint by up to 0.5 to 1 ton of CO2 per year. National impact. If widespread, these actions could reduce U.S. emissions by 5 to 10%, equivalent to hundreds of millions of tons of CO2 annually, especially by diverting organic waste from landfills and reducing unnecessary production.
How we can reduce the amount of carbon released on a national scale. Expand recycling and composting programs. Make these services more accessible and consistent across cities.
Invest in waste-to-energy technologies. Safely convert non-recyclable waste into energy rather than sending it to landfills.
Encourage circular economy policies. Require manufacturers to design products that are reusable or recyclable.
Educate citizens. National awareness campaigns can teach people how to sort waste correctly and reduce consumption.
Support sustainable agricultural and food systems. This can reduce the carbon footprint from food waste and production.
Here is our works cited.